I find my son, 2 years and 8 months baby, but I ain't get me daughter up to now. And I just cry night and day. I want to bring up the boat. The boat got to come up. If me get me daughter be a dress, if me should be a bone, I want it. I got to carry back Northwest for no my baby and my daughter the Northwest at the burial ground. That's all I crying out for. Let them bring up the boat. And then I go be more happy and know that my children is Northwest with me. That's all I got to say. It really hard. Only Sunday afternoon I bury my son. And I want my daughter. I'm begging them to bring up the boat. That's all I want. So if the man say if he broke up, the bone them go scatter. But say, well, if you got to scatter, we go test, we go know who's with family bone. And that's all I got to say for now.
If I told you I had a document that could potentially collapse an entire government ministry.
Oh, wow.
Right, like stall a massive maritime salvage operation and basically weaponize the profound grief of hundreds of families, you'd probably think, we were about to read some massive 1,000-page legal dossier.
Absolutely, like a huge parliamentary report or something.
Exactly. But the text we are looking at today is literally just a single brief statement.
Yeah, it's incredibly short.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to perform an intense, close-reading analysis of this highly charged political announcement regarding the salvage of the MV Barima. Because, it is basically a masterclass in how much strategy, leverage, and raw emotion can be packed into just a handful of sentences.
It's dense. We're looking at an excerpt from a text authored by the opposition leader, Azzuddin Mohammed, and it's titled The Barima Salvage and the Mandate for Closure.
A heavy title.
Very heavy. And because this text is so steeped in immediate political demands, we do need to lay down a clear boundary for our analysis today.
Right, that's crucial.
Yeah, this source contains some really heavy accusations, politically charged statements aimed directly at the current government. So our goal in this deep dive is to impartially report and analyze the rhetoric. We're definitely not endorsing any political viewpoints here.
No, not at all.
We aren't taking sides on whether the opposition or the government is, in the right. The mission is simply to convey and unpack the underlying strategies and ideas contained in the original text. We're just looking at the mechanics of the argument.
Yeah, we're not voting on it. We're just dissecting it. And to really understand this document, you have to, look closely at the calendar.
Yes, the timing is everything.
Right. Today is Monday, August 3, 2026. Mm-hmm. Keep that specific date, August 3, firmly in your mind as we go through this.
Because it changes the whole context.
Exactly. The impending deadlines mentioned in this source, they aren't some abstract historical dates. They're just days away from right now, which injects this text with, a massive sense of urgency for anyone reading it today.
It really does. It's happening right now.
Okay, let's unpack this. And to start, let's actually look at how Azzuddin Mohammed frames the government's decision to finally salvage the MV Barima. Because he doesn't treat it like, a standard administrative update.
No, not at all. He frames it as a forced surrender. The specific phrasing he uses is power to the people.
Wow.
Yeah. And he claims that the government finally buckled under the pressure of the people.
Buckled. That's a very specific word choice.
Right. What's fascinating here is how an announcement about a maritime salvage operation, which is technically a highly bureaucratic logistical step, is being aggressively rebranded as a moral triumph for truth, justice, and closure.
It's like a political tug of war where one side finally drops the rope, but the other side is still pulling with all their might just to show the crowd how incredibly strong they are.
That is exactly what it is. They want the public to believe the only reason the game ended is because of their superior strength. The government is stripped of any agency.
But let me push back on that for a second. If this is truly a victory, if the government is finally doing what the opposition wanted, why is the tone of the statement still so intensely adversarial?
That's the core of it, really.
Usually when you win a major victory for your constituents, you take a victory lap, you talk about healing. This still sounds like a declaration of war.
Well, you have to understand the underlying engine of opposition politics. Their primary currency is grievance and contrast.
Right.
If you simply celebrate a government action, even one you actively demanded, you risk neutralizing your own momentum.
You make the government look good.
Exactly. You risk making the current administration look competent, responsive, reasonable to the voters. By maintaining this highly adversarial tone, By calling it a forced surrender, you ensure they get zero positive credit.
So you're basically telling your supporters, hey, they didn't do this because they care, they did it because we forced them.
Spot on. It maintains that friction. If the base thinks the problem is solved, they just go home. If they think they just won one battle in an ongoing war against a reluctant government, they stay mobilized.
And that ongoing war needs a new battleground. Which is exactly what happens next in the text. The victory lap lasts for, what, 2 sentences?
Barely 2 sentences.
And then it immediately shifts focus from the abstract claim of victory to a very concrete friction point, which is the timeline. The statement zeroes in on a specific deadline, August 14th, 2026.
Yes, the August 14th deadline. Mohammed writes that this date is far too late.
Far too late.
Right. And he expresses this fear that at the current pace, the salvage might slip into sometime in September.
Okay, let's do the raw math here because this is where the calendar really matters. Today is August 3. The government's deadline is August 14.
Right.
That is an 11-day window, just 11 days.
It's remarkably short.
And yet Mohammed is already projecting failure into September. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows how controlling the timeline narrative is just a crucial tactic in political opposition.
Oh, entirely. Because time is objective, right? But how we experience time is completely subjective.
Yeah, that's so true.
They take a date on a calendar, August 14, and they just declare it a point of moral failure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I have to play devil's advocate for the listener. An 11-day window is basically 2 business wins. For a national government with access to, military and commercial resources, shouldn't they be able to pull a ship out of the water in a week and a half?
You'd think so, intuitively.
Right. So is an 11-day window realistically far too late for a complex maritime salvage? Or is the opposition deliberately setting an impossible standard of immediate action?
It is absolutely an impossible standard. To understand why 11 days is actually an incredibly aggressive timeline, we have to look at the physical mechanics of marine salvage.
Okay, break that down for us.
Bringing a sunken or severely damaged vessel up from the deep is not like calling a tow truck for a broken down car on the highway.
Right, you can't just hook a chain to the bumper and pull.
Exactly, because you tear the ship apart, which destroys all the forensic evidence everyone is looking for. You are dealing with physics that are actively working against you.
Like the water weight.
The sheer weight of a waterlogged vessel, yes. Plus, you have to compound that with the suction effect of the seabed.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, the mud and silt act like a giant vacuum holding the hull down. To break that suction without snapping the vessel in half, you need specialized heavy lift cranes.
And I'm guessing those aren't just sitting around in every port.
Not at all. They're often mounted on massive barges that have to be towed to the location from other ports, sometimes even other countries. And before a crane even arrives, dive teams have to perform complex, pressurized diving operations.
Just to prepare the site.
Just to prepare it. They have to map the wreck with sonar, assess the structural integrity, physically swim under the wreck to rig lifting straps.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
It is. They have to account for ocean currents, tidal shifts, weather windows. Mobilizing all of that, the ships, the cranes, the divers, the engineers, is a monumental logistical feat.
So 11 days is?
In the realm of heavy marine salvage, 11 days is basically the blink of an eye. Getting the right specialized equipment into position alone usually takes weeks, if not months.
So if the opposition leader knows that an 11-day turnaround is basically warp speed, why attack it?
Because they know the general public doesn't intuitively grasp the physics of seabed suction or pressurized diving.
Right. It's like ordering a massive custom-built skyscraper on Amazon Prime and then publicly feigning outrage when it doesn't show up in 2 days with free shipping.
That is a perfect analogy. They exploit that gap in technical knowledge. They take a highly compressed, rapid timeline, and they stretch it out in the mind of the reader so it feels like this sprawling, negligent, bureaucratic evasion.
They're setting a trap.
A brilliant trap. By anchoring the public's expectation to the word immediately, any actual logistical timeline, even a highly ambitious 11-day window, can be framed as a delay.
And if, say, a storm rolls in on August 12th and pushes the salvage back by a couple days?
Then the opposition points to their statement and says, look, we told you they were stalling. We told you it would slip into September.
Wow. So they are evaluating the timeline based entirely on emotional resonance, not marine engineering standards.
Exactly. And that brings us to the real driving force of this statement, the human element.
Yes, the text takes a very hard pivot here. It abandons the cold logistics of cranes and barges, and it anchors this dispute over the calendar in profound human suffering.
It grounds the entire political argument in grief.
Right. Mohammed writes that this alleged delay is forcing grieving families to wait even longer for the answers and closure they deserve.
It's powerful language.
It demands that operations begin immediately so that the truth can be uncovered and the families can finally begin to find the closure they have been denied. I mean, closure is an incredibly heavy word to drop into a political press release.
It is. What we're seeing here is the elevation of closure from a deeply personal, psychological need into a strict political mandate.
I mean, it's literally the title of the document, the mandate for closure.
Right. The text inextricably links the physical recovery of the vessel in the water with the emotional recovery of the families on land.
It creates this unbroken chain of causality. Like, if the government delays the ship by a single day, they are actively denying emotional peace to grieving families.
Yes. The calendar isn't just a grid of numbers for these families anymore. The opposition has framed the timeline so that every hour passed immediately feels like the government is hiding the truth.
It's a waiting room for grief, where every delay feels like a denied answer.
It's a devastatingly potent way to argue about a schedule. You aren't arguing about crane availability anymore. You are arguing about human empathy.
But I have to ask a really critical question here, just looking at the reality of disaster recovery. Can a physical salvage operation actually guarantee the truth and answers these families are seeking?
That's the tragic vulnerability at the heart of this kind of political rhetoric.
Because it seems like the opposition leader is promising an emotional resolution that a rusty, damaged ship might not actually be able to provide once it's pulled up onto dry land.
That's exactly right. A salvage vessel is ultimately just twisted metal, water damage, and forensic evidence.
Right. It's not a magic answer box.
No. It might provide technical answers to investigators. It might show that a specific hull plate buckled or a pump failed. But truth and closure, especially after a sudden tragedy with mass human loss, are incredibly complex emotional states.
Yeah, they rarely arise in a neat package just because an investigation finishes. Because knowing how a ship sank doesn't answer the agonizing question of why it had to happen to your loved one.
Exactly. Human grief looks for meaning. Forensics only provides mechanics. So by promising that pulling the ship out of the water will deliver truth and closure, the political statement is setting a remarkably high emotional bar, one that engineering simply cannot clear.
It conflates physical evidence with psychological healing.
Yes. And in the short term, that's highly effective for mobilizing public anger. But it risks deep compounding disillusionment for the families in the long term. What happens when the physical evidence is laid out on a dock, and it doesn't provide the psychological peace they were promised?
The families are essentially being used as emotional leverage to apply torque to the government.
That's the unfortunate reality of it.
And just as the statement reaches this emotional peak regarding the grieving families, it takes this sharp, sudden turn back to hardball politics.
The whiplash is intense.
It really is. Let's talk about the ultimatum. Because the very last emphatic sentence of the source is a standalone demand. Minister Ed Hill must resign.
Yeah, that final sentence completely reframes the entire document.
It creates a massive logical contradiction. After demanding that the government act immediately to pull this ship out of the water to help grieving families, they demand the resignation of the minister in charge.
This raises an important question about their actual priorities.
So what does this all mean? If the ultimate goal is to get the salvage operation started immediately, wouldn't decapitating the ministry by forcing Minister Ed Hill to resign right now actually delay the August 14th timeline even further?
Oh, absolutely. Logically and logistically, firing the head of a ministry days before a major operation is a guaranteed recipe for delay.
I mean, the bureaucracy would just freeze, right?
Completely. Acting leadership has to be appointed, those new leaders have to be briefed, existing authorizations are paused for review.
Contractors probably stop working because they aren't sure who is signing the checks anymore.
Exactly. If your genuine primary objective is maximum operational speed to get a ship out of the water tomorrow, the absolute last thing you do is decapitate the command structure overseeing the cranes and the divers.
Which means this document isn't actually a sincere logistical critique. It's a targeted political strike.
The contradiction is the clearest indicator of the document's true nature. In the language of political opposition, You don't have to resolve logical paradoxes.
You can demand maximum efficiency and immediately demand the firing of the people running the operation.
Right. Because the goal of that final sentence isn't to speed up the salvage boats. The goal is to extract a heavy political price. The physical salvage of the MV Barima is simply the leverage being used to apply pressure to Minister Edhill's career and the government's stability.
That is just it. It's wild how much is packed into such a short statement. We started with what looked like a brief, straightforward announcement about pulling a damaged ship out of the water.
But when you look at the architecture of the argument, there's an entire political ecosystem beneath the surface.
Exactly. I mean, just to recap this journey we've been on, we saw how a highly complex government action was aggressively rebranded as a people's victory and a forced surrender.
Stripping the administration of any credit.
Right. Then we watched how a wildly ambitious 11-day engineering timeline leading up to August 14 was weaponized, totally ignoring the physics of marine salvage to frame the government as negligent.
And then pivoting to use the raw grief of families to create an unassailable mandate for closure.
Conflating the recovery of twisted metal with emotional peace. And finally, funneling all of that emotional and logistical pressure into a single, sharp political ultimatum demanding a minister's resignation. A demand that would, ironically, delay the very salvage operation they claim is so urgent.
Reading between the lines like this is such a vital skill to cultivate. When you encounter political messaging, a press release, a social media post, whatever, it is almost never just about the surface level facts.
There's always a blueprint.
Exactly. By slowing down and performing this kind of structural analysis, you see the complex mechanics of how time, human emotion, and political ambition intersect. It empowers you to see the actual strategy, not just the emotional hooks.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive into the textual waters of this controversy, it leaves us with a final, somewhat provocative thought for you to mull over.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We've talked a lot about the tension between the physical reality of the salvage and the political reality of the statement. When the MV Barima is finally pulled from the water, whether that happens on August 14 or slips into September, it will undoubtedly bring physical closure to the maritime operation.
The cranes will pack up, the dive teams will go home.
The sea will close over the spot where the vessel used to be. But once the physical ship is resting on a dry dock, will the political salvage operation end?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Or will pulling this vessel from the depths simply unearth a whole new set of political battles over who gets to interpret the forensic evidence, who gets to assign the blame for the tragedy, and ultimately who gets to control the narrative of what the truth actually is?
Unpacking the statement is really just the beginning. The real battle starts when the evidence sees the light of day.
Sometimes bringing a heavy object to the surface doesn't end the story. It just gives everybody a much bigger, much more visible object to fight over.